Overstimulation. Sounds exciting.
So excited, and I just can't hide it. No, oh, I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it. Oh, yeah, I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. No.
Okay, well, maybe not that exciting. In personnel economics terms, I'm using overstimulation to capture situations when economically oriented workers push their self-interest to extremes. In particular, we'll focus on the possibility that a worker is overstimulated by a financial incentive and engages in behaviors that exploit this incentive for their own advantage to the detriment of the organization. In other words, instead of having the Pointer Sisters sing, "I'm so excited and I just can't hide it," think of lyrics along the lines of, "I'm so self-interested and I just can't tame it." Not quite as catchy, but sums it up. Here are some examples. Compensating auto mechanics for each repair might result in a mechanic doing unnecessary repairs. Paying data entry workers by the keystroke might result in mindless repetition on the keyboard that ignores the quality of their work. Paying software programmers to fix bugs might cause some to write bugs into their programs, which they then get paid for finding and fixing. Or a food packaging company that provides an incentive for finding real bugs might find that some workers bring in insects from outside and claim to find them in the food being processed. Now let's think about how to incorporate this into the graphical approach we've been using. We'll do this by thinking about two time periods. In the first time period, we start with our typical setup in which the organization sets the optimal incentive by determining where the organization's marginal benefit of additional effort equals the marginal cost of additional effort. So we have the typical marginal graph with effort or quantity on the x-axis and dollars per unit of effort on the y-axis. Since this is dollars per unit rather than just dollars, we know it's going to portray marginal cost and marginal benefit curves rather than indifference curves or other things. The marginal cost curve slopes upward because effort gets increasingly more costly. The organization's marginal benefit curve is its marginal net revenue curve. That is, the additional revenue generated after accounting for additional non-labor expenses. So the optimal incentive, B star, is where the two curves intersect. Shifting to the worker's perspective, they also optimize where their marginal cost equals their marginal benefit, but the worker's marginal benefit of additional effort is B star. So equating the worker's marginal cost and benefit yields the worker's optimal effort level, E star. If this repeats itself into the future, everything is fine. The organization and worker are both optimizing where their marginal cost equals their marginal benefit. But suppose that in some future time period, economically focused workers with a strong drive to serve their own self-interest find an easier way of exerting the effort that's being rewarded. Auto mechanics might discover they can add unnecessary repairs. Data entry workers might discover they can just press one key repeatedly and still get paid the same because it's only the number of keystrokes being logged. Or workers discover they can build in their own bugs and get rewarded for finding them. If a worker has found a cheaper way to exert effort, they've lowered their marginal cost, so for the same incentive B star, it's now optimal to exert more effort. Graphically, the cheaper way to exert effort shifts the marginal cost curve. Remember that the worker optimizes where their marginal cost equals their marginal benefit, and the worker's marginal benefit is B star, the incentive. So we can see the new intersection of marginal cost and marginal benefit and the new higher optimal effort level. Well, optimal for the worker at least. Recall that the marginal net revenue is irrelevant to the self-interested worker, but it's key for the organization. In fact, it's the organization's marginal benefit curve. Pause the video and try to see why the organization should not be happy with the new situation. Did you see it? Importantly, this new situation with the worker exerting higher levels of substandard effort is not optimal for the organization because at this higher effort level, the organization's marginal cost exceeds its marginal benefit. Remember again that the worker and organization have different marginal benefits. For the worker, it's B star. For the organization, it's marginal net revenue. So while the worker is optimizing, the organization is harmed because at this higher level of effort, the organization's marginal cost exceeds its marginal benefit. So it, the organization, would prefer less effort. Moreover, The situation for the organization is probably even worse than we've portrayed it so far, because not only is there too much effort being exerted, but this substandard cheap effort is probably costly to the organization. That is, the organization might get sued for charging customers for unnecessary auto repairs, or need to fix bad data entry, or need to give discounts to customers because of poor product quality. In other words, the marginal net revenue generated by this lower quality effort is likely lower than the original marginal net revenue curve because this effort isn't as valuable. Graphically, we can portray this as a shift down in the marginal net revenue curve, which equals an even larger gap between the organization's marginal cost and marginal benefit. So finding a cheap way to exert more effort and still get rewarded for it is good for the self-interested worker, but is harmful to the organization. In conclusion, if an incentive overstimulates self-interested workers, then they overproduce low-quality effort. Note that this can occur in situations that are not as dishonest as the examples given here. We can also apply this thinking to situations in which workers do a low-quality job in a fast way in order to get to the next one, which then leads to expenses of rework or the loss of repeat business. I've experienced this myself with contractors. Ultimately then, overstimulation can reflect a combination of aggressive self-interest by the worker and difficult to observe behavior, especially work quality. The organization thinks it's providing an incentive for something desirable, but if quality is difficult to observe, then the incentive might actually be rewarding low-quality effort. Being aware of these informational or observability challenges is one lesson for HR professionals. The second lesson is don't be overly naive. Managers should not assume that workers will do what's in the organization's best interest. At least some workers might pursue their own self-interest, even to the detriment of their employer. Managers therefore need to think carefully about the incentives workers face as seen from the perspective of the worker. Don't be overly defensive, but keep the possibility of overstimulation in mind. Some workers might push their self-interest to extreme, others might not be so aggressive, but still find it tempting to prioritize their own self-interest, even if in small ways.